Have you ever wanted to play piano but felt it's, I don't know, just too late, too hard, or way too expensive?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is arguably one of the most common, deferred dreams in adult life.
Yeah.
That really specific sinking feeling of looking at this beautiful instrument, sitting down at the bench, and just feeling entirely fundamentally locked out of the whole experience.
Right. I want you to picture this for a second.
Mm.
We all have this collective cultural image in our heads of what learning the piano is supposed to look like, you know.
Oh, the posture.
Yes, you're sitting there, your posture is rigidly straight on this terribly hard wooden bench. There's a metronome ticking away beside you.
Chick, tick, tick.
Exactly. And it doesn't even feel like a tool. It feels like a judge just relentlessly counting down your mistakes.
Yeah, the anxiety is real.
It really is. And like staring back at you on the music stand is this completely incomprehensible sheet of paper.
As a wall of math.
Right. It's covered in vertical lines, horizontal lines, brackets, and these dense swarms of black dots. And somehow, through some mysterious alchemy, you are supposed to instantly translate that terrifying visual code into, beautiful emotive music using 10 independently moving fingers.
Which, when you frame it exactly like that, perfectly illustrates why the attrition rate for adult piano students is staggeringly high.
It's huge.
Because the traditional learning experience is just front-loaded with an immense amount of cognitive friction.
Yeah.
You aren't actually playing music in those early days, or even, honestly, those early months.
Not at all.
You are essentially performing rapid-fire musical mathematics. You're studying a highly complex, archaic language before you are ever allowed to speak a single meaningful sentence in it.
And it's boring. Like, let's just be honest about that for a second. It is so boring.
It really relies so heavily on rote memorization.
Exactly. You're supposed to sit there day after day, week after week, practicing endless variations of scales that sound like absolutely nothing.
Just exercises.
Yeah, and you are paying a premium, right?
Yeah.
Both in your precious free time and in actual dollars.
Oh, the financial burden is massive.
You're waiting for this magical day, years down the line, when your instructor might finally deem you worthy of playing, like a simplified arrangement of a song you actually recognize.
The time commitment alone is massive, the mental drain is exhausting, and then, as you mentioned, there is the cost.
Right.
The prohibitive cost of weekly in-person lessons with an expensive teacher creates a barrier that simply isn't feasible for most working adults.
No, of course not.
I mean, you are paying someone a significant hourly rate to sit next to you and correct your hand posture while you struggle to sight-read nursery rhymes.
Exactly. You are shelling out real money to play Mary Had a Little Lamb for the 4th week in a row.
While your teacher taps a pencil on the music stand.
Yes. It is enough to make anyone throw their hands up and say, you know what? I missed the boat. I should have learned this when my brain was a sponge at 7 years old. And now I'm not wired for it.
Which is such a tragedy, really.
It is. So if you are listening to us right now and feeling a sense of recognition, if you have ever felt the sting of giving up on that dream because the barrier to entry was just a wall you couldn't climb, then you are exactly who we are doing this deep dive for today.
It's a very real, very valid pain point. But the premise we are exploring today challenges that entire traditional structure from the ground up.
It really does.
It asks a deeply disruptive question, really. What if the barrier to entry isn't the piano itself? What if the instrument isn't the problem, but rather the centuries-old pedagogical framework we use to teach it?
Which is the core mission of our deep dive today. We are going to examine a fascinating, highly detailed preliminary review.
By Tony, right?
Yeah, created by a reviewer named Tony over at pianotone.c. He published this deep dive into an online course back in the fall of 2021. The course is called Pianoforall.
By Robin Hall.
Created by Robin Hall, exactly.
Right.
And we're going to look at this methodology today as a potential solution, maybe even like the ultimate workaround to all of those specific frustrations we just outlined.
And what makes our source material today particularly compelling is the context of Tony's review. He is very transparent right up front that he hasn't actually finished the course.
Which is wild.
Yeah, when he sat down to record his findings and write his review, he was only about a third of the way through the available modules.
Okay, wait, I have to stop you there. Because normally, if I'm reading a review of a product and the reviewer says, hey, I haven't actually finished using this yet, my immediate reaction is to just close the tab.
Right. Totally understandable.
I mean, how can you evaluate a curriculum if you haven't seen the end of it? Why are we trusting a premature review?
Well, that's a completely natural skepticism. But in this specific context, the prematurity of the review is actually the strongest endorsement of the product.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Tony explicitly states that he felt absolutely compelled to share his findings mid-process because of how uniquely effective and radically different the methodology was proving to be.
He just couldn't wait.
He literally couldn't wait until he finished the course to talk about it, because the initial approach completely subverted his expectations of what those early agonizing stages of learning piano are supposed to feel like.
So the fact that he was so energized by just the first third of the course proves that the slog we just talked about, the months of boring scales and metronome ticking, has been somehow bypassed.
Precisely. When a learning method works so rapidly that a reviewer stops what they are doing to say, people need to know about this immediately, it indicates a fundamental shift in the learning paradigm.
It's not just more of the same.
No, it tells us that the initial stages of Pianoforall are not a test of endurance. They are the hook.
Okay, let's dig right into that shift then. Let's look at the core philosophy that makes Pianoforall such an anomaly in the very rigid world of music education.
The manifesto.
Right. It essentially boils down to a very simple, almost rebellious manifesto. Play first, theory later.
Play first, theory later. It sounds like an advertising slogan, but it is actually a profound departure from the classical conservatory method.
Because that method dictates theory first, execution second.
Exactly.
The core detail of this approach is that Pianoforall is entirely chord-based at the beginning. Sight reading, gone.
Memorizing the treble clef, completely bypassed.
You are not looking at traditional sheet music when you start this course.
And this is where we really have to look at the psychology of cognitive load. In traditional learning, think about the chain of events that has to happen for a beginner to play a single note.
It's a lot.
First, your eye looks at a dot on a line. Second, your brain has to remember the mnemonic device to figure out what letter that dot represents. Let's say it's an E.
Every good boy deserves fudge, right?
Third, your brain has to look down at an ocean of black and white keys, find the specific grouping of keys that represents that specific E.
And then, fourth, you have to tell a specific finger to press that key down with the correct amount of force.
And you have to do all of that in a fraction of a second, and time with a rhythm.
It's crazy.
By removing sight reading entirely, Robin Hall is surgically removing the most exhausting translation steps from the process.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. If you strip away the theory, if you aren't teaching someone why they were pressing those keys, aren't you just teaching them party tricks?
The monkey-do argument.
Yeah. Like, aren't you just building players who have no idea what they're actually doing? I worry that bypassing theory just creates a really shaky foundation.
Well, that is the standard defense of the traditional conservatory method.
Yeah.
And honestly, it makes sense if your ultimate goal is to become an elite session musician who needs to sight read complex orchestral scores on command.
Right.
But let's look at how human beings naturally learn. Think about how you learn to speak your native language.
Okay.
Did your parents sit you down as a toddler, hand you a textbook on grammatical syntax, and force you to diagram sentences before you were allowed to ask for a glass of milk?
Wow. No, obviously not. You just mimic sounds until they mean something.
Exactly. You learn by doing. You learn by speaking, making mistakes, and realizing that certain sounds achieve certain outcomes.
That makes a lot of sense.
You learn the theory, the grammar and the spelling, years later in elementary school, long after you are already a fluent speaker.
So Pianoforall applies this exact same organic learning model to music.
Yes. You learn to speak the chords first. The grammatical theory of why a C major chord is constructed with a root, a major third, and a perfect fifth, that is explained much later, once you already know what it feels and sounds like.
Tony uses an analogy in his review that I think perfectly crystallizes why this makes so much sense, and it involves a completely different instrument.
The guitar analogy.
Yes, he brings up the guitar. If you think about beginner guitar lessons, the culture around learning guitar is entirely different from the piano.
Night and day.
If you walk into a guitar shop for your first lesson, they don't sit you down, hand you a Fender Stratocaster, and say, all right, memorize every single note on this fretboard, and now let's sight read a sonata.
No, the retention rate would be zero. People would just walk out.
Right. Instead, they say, take your index finger, put it on this string, on this fret. Take your middle finger, put it here. This shape you are making with your hand is called a C chord. Now take your other hand and strum.
And instantly, it sounds like music.
It sounds like a real song. Why hasn't the piano always been taught with this same tactile, shape-based approach?
Well, it has to do with the physical interface of the instruments. A guitar fretboard is a grid, which makes it very easy to visualize shapes and patterns.
Oh, that's true.
The piano is a linear sequence of keys, which historically led educators to treat it like a linear progression of notes on a staff. But what Robin Hall has done is apply that guitar-style, shape-based pedagogy directly to the keyboard.
And the psychological impact of that for an adult learner is just massive.
Yeah.
Getting quick, satisfying, and genuinely fun results immediately is like the single most important factor in whether an adult will stick with a new hobby.
We have to remember that as adults, our time and energy are deeply scarce resources.
So scarce.
After a long day of work, paying bills, managing a household, your brain does not want to endure the frustration of feeling incompetent.
No, you want to relax.
Exactly. If we don't see a return on our time investment quickly, if we don't get that dopamine hit of success, we will simply abandon the pursuit. It's not a lack of discipline. It's a natural neurological self-preservation mechanism.
So, by prioritizing the how over the why, Robin Hall is basically hacking the reward center of the brain.
He really is.
So he's saying, put your fingers on these keys, press down. Don't worry about the underlying physics of the harmony yet. Just enjoy the sound you just made. It's like liberating the student from having to understand the internal combustion engine before they are allowed to drive the car.
That's a brilliant way to phrase it. You are building muscle memory and auditory connections first. You're creating a positive feedback loop.
I press this shape, it sounds beautiful, I feel good, I want to do it again.
Exactly.
And think about the emotional benefit of this for you, the listener. Imagine starting from absolute zero. You have literally never touched a piano in your life.
A total blank slate.
And in a matter of days, not months, not years, but days, you are sitting down and playing chords that sound full, rich, and complex.
You aren't plinking out a monophonic melody line of a public domain children's song.
No, you are playing the foundational building blocks of real contemporary music.
Because the reality is that the vast majority of modern music, whether it's pop, rock, R&B, gospel, or country, is entirely chord-based.
It's all chords.
It is not intricately composed classical counterpoint where every single note is meticulously plotted out. If you know a handful of basic chords, you effectively hold the keys to thousands upon thousands of popular songs.
It's an incredible confidence boost. Imagine sitting at a piano at a party or even just in your living room with your family listening.
Right.
Instead of nervously trying to remember where middle C is to play Twinkle Twinkle, you confidently lay down a solid rhythmic chord progression.
It sounds legitimate.
It sounds like music. That emotion, that feeling of pride, accomplishment, and joy sells this methodology so much better than any dry, logical argument about musical pedagogy ever could.
It transforms the piano from an antagonist that you're constantly wrestling with into a tool for self-expression.
But let's take a step back, because a revolutionary teaching philosophy is completely useless if the delivery method is a nightmare.
Oh, technology can be a huge hurdle.
We've all been there. We get excited, we buy an online course, and then we realize the website is a clunky mess. You get lost in login screens, the video player constantly buffers, the interface is confusing.
And the sheer friction of just trying to access the lesson kills your motivation before you even start learning.
Exactly. The digital friction is a very real barrier. Educational technology often overcomplicates the delivery in an attempt to justify its price tag. So how does Pianoforall structure its delivery to avoid this?
This is the next major point Tony covers. And the core detail of what you actually get when you purchase the course is beautifully, almost aggressively simple.
Yeah, you aren't buying a subscription to a bloated web portal.
The entire package consists of 9 interactive ebooks. That's it, 9 files.
Ebooks. Okay, I have to admit, when I first heard ebooks in the context of learning a physical instrument, it sounded a bit archaic.
It does, yeah. In the era of artificial intelligence that listens to you play and gamified apps with falling neon notes on a screen, an ebook sounds like a step backward into, like, the 1990s.
I thought the exact same thing, but Tony's review completely flipped my perspective on this. These can be accessed on standard, everyday e-reader apps.
Like Apple Books.
Yeah, Tony mentions using Apple Books on his iPad and his iPhone. And he notes there are tons of free and paid software options for PC or Android users, but the word interactive is doing an incredible amount of heavy lifting here.
Right, these are not just static PDFs of text and pictures of hands.
Not at all. So how does the interactivity manifest without requiring some complex, buggy app?
The multimedia integration is the crucial differentiator here. Embedded directly into the pages of these ebooks are overhead video demonstrations from Robin Hall himself.
Right alongside integrated sound clips for every single exercise.
Oh, I see. So the media is native to the file itself.
Exactly. You are reading the text, explaining a concept, you see a high-resolution picture of where to place your hands, and right there, literally on the same digital page, you tap a play button and watch his hands physically execute what you just read from a top-down perspective.
That's so convenient.
And right next to that is an audio player to just hear the rhythm.
And because it's an ebook format, I assume this means it's entirely offline once downloaded.
Yes, you don't even need the internet. Tony makes a huge point of marveling at this specific feature.
It's the game changer.
He points out that you can maximize and minimize these videos right inside the book without ever bouncing around between different applications.
The psychological advantage of that offline contained ecosystem cannot be overstated. Oh, absolutely. Every time a learner has to switch applications, they incur what cognitive scientists call a context switching penalty.
Oh, I felt that.
Your brain has to momentarily disengage from the learning material, orient itself to a new interface, navigate a menu, and then try to re-engage with the learning state.
Not to mention the absolute minefield of distraction that the internet represents.
Exactly.
Think about how a normal online course works. You read a PDF, then you have to minimize it, open your web browser, and navigate to a private YouTube link, wait for the video to load, and suddenly...
Suddenly, the algorithm suggests a highly optimized clickbait video about deep-sea marine biology or a political debate or, a cat video.
And 20 minutes later, you are nowhere near your piano. The internet is explicitly designed to hijack your attention. By creating an offline, all-in-one format, Robin Hall is fiercely protecting the learner's focus. He respects your time.
It actively prevents the overwhelming information overload that plagues modern digital learning. You aren't managing 20 different browser tabs and troubleshooting your Wi-Fi connection. You just turn the digital page.
It creates a closed, seamless loop of learning. Read the concept, watch the physical execution, hear the auditory goal, and try it yourself.
It's so streamlined.
But knowing how to access the material brings us to the actual mechanics of what you are playing. Because knowing chords is one thing.
Yeah.
Let's say you master the shape of a C chord and an F chord. You can confidently press those keys down, but if that's all you do, how do you avoid sounding like a robot just rhythmically mashing keys on a synthesizer?
Yes. The block chord trap,
The block chord trap, exactly.
where you hold your hands stiffly and just play thump, thump, thump. It sounds incredibly rigid. It sounds like you are analyzing music rather than feeling it.
Right. And this leads us to the curriculum's foundational secret weapon, which is introduced immediately in books 1 through 4.
We've established that books 1 to 4 build the chord-based foundation.
Yeah, but the massive differentiator, the element that Tony highlights as completely setting Pianoforall apart from every other chord-based course on the market, is the early, relentless introduction of rhythm.
Which is fascinating, because rhythm is usually treated as an advanced module in self-taught piano courses.
Yeah.
You learn the harmony first, and then months later, you try to figure out how to make it groove.
Exactly. But Robin Hall teaches simple, common left-hand rhythms and walking bass lines right alongside the very first basic chords.
It's bold.
Tony provides some great context here by comparing Pianoforall to other chord-based online courses he has personally taken, specifically calling out Piano in 21 Days and the Piano Man approach.
And how do they compare? Because those are both highly regarded programs in the adult learning space.
Tony is very fair here. He emphasizes that those are both fantastic courses, and they also use zero sheet music and focus heavily on chords.
Okay.
But while they are great, Pianoforall forces you to integrate left-hand coordination from day one, which entirely changes the trajectory of your learning. Tony notes that the Piano Man approach eventually gets into heavy left-hand rhythm patterns, which he says really elevated his playing. But he explicitly admits he wishes he had been forced to include more rhythm right from the very start.
Because retrofitting rhythm onto a rigid foundation is incredibly difficult.
Let's look at a specific example Tony discusses from the source material to illustrate this. He mentions a rhythm pattern taught early on called the straight beat gospel style.
Straight beat gospel style.
Yeah. In this exercise, you aren't just holding down a sequence of chords like C, A minor, F, and G and waiting for the measure to end. You are integrating left and right hand notes in a specific alternating rhythmic sequence.
You're establishing a groove. You're becoming the rhythm section and the harmonic section simultaneously.
Have you ever tried that old trick where you pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time?
Oh, yes. And it generally results in either patting both or rubbing both. The brain desperately wants the limbs to mirror each other.
Exactly. It feels so weird when you first try it because your brain's corpus callosum is screaming, just do the same motion with both hands, it's easier.
Yeah.
That exact same neurological rebellion happens when you sit at a piano. Your left hand desperately wants to mirror the exact timing and movement of your right hand.
It's just human nature.
By introducing this straight beat gospel-style rhythm immediately, Hall is forcing the student to confront and conquer that hand independence right out of the gate.
And this raises a crucial point about habit formation in adult learners.
Right.
If you spend your first 6 months of learning piano only playing block chords, where both hands strike the keys simultaneously in perfect symmetry, you literally hardwire that symmetrical movement into your neural pathways.
It becomes your default state of playing.
So when you eventually try to learn an alternating bass line, you aren't just learning a new skill.
No, you are actively having to unlearn months of deeply ingrained muscle memory. You are fighting your own central nervous system.
Oh.
By forcing that mild discomfort, that rubbing the stomach and patting the head feeling, in the very first days of the course, Pianoforall prevents that symmetrical bad habit from ever taking root.
It normalizes hand independence so early that playing rhythmically eventually feels like the default natural state rather than some terrifying advanced technique tacked on a year later.
And the immediate payoff is that your playing actually sounds like the song you were trying to play.
Yes.
Tony emphasizes this heavily. If you just play static block chords to a Beatles song or a gospel tune, a listener might recognize the harmony, but it feels flat, it feels lifeless.
It's missing the heartbeat.
But the moment you add that alternating left-hand rhythm, the song suddenly has a pulse. It comes alive. And getting the learner to experience that alive feeling as fast as possible is the entire engine driving this methodology.
However, this naturally leads to a massive point of tension. And I'm sure listeners who are analytically minded are wondering about this right now.
I know I was.
If the entire foundation of books 1 through 4 is strictly about chords, rhythm, playing by ear, and visualizing physical patterns, what happens to the people who eventually do want to read music?
Yeah, are they permanently stunted?
Does this method create a generation of musicians who are paralyzed with fear the second someone puts a piece of classical notation in front of them?
It's the ultimate fear of the shortcut, right?
Yeah.
If I take the easy road now, am I building a brick wall that I'm going to crash into later?
Exactly.
But this brings us to what might be the most ingenious, psychologically clever part of the entire Pianoforall curriculum. Tony calls it out specifically in his review. Hall actually does include traditional sheet music in almost all of the examples throughout the early books.
He does?
He does. But there is a massive counterintuitive twist. The text explicitly instructs you not to try reading the notes.
Wait. He puts the sheet music on the page right in front of the student and tells them to actively ignore it.
Yes. It sits right there on the digital page, right beneath the video demonstration and the text explanation. But you are given official permission by the instructor to completely disregard it as a reading tool.
Then what on earth is the pedagogical purpose of including it? If you are supposed to read it, isn't it just visual clutter?
It is the ultimate Trojan horse. It is essentially visual exposure therapy.
Oh, wow.
The sheet music is there purely to give your brain a general passive sense of the shapes, the physical patterns, and the visual rhythms. You aren't trying to decode the specific letters. You are just looking at the visual topography of the music.
Topography, I like that.
For example, Tony points out that the sheet music includes chord symbols printed boldly at the very top of the staff, like a big letter C or AM for A minor.
Ah, I see the dual purpose there. First, by prioritizing those chord symbols over the individual notes on the staff, he is actively preparing the learner to read lead sheets. For context, a lead sheet is how almost all modern jazz, pop, and studio session music is written. It's just a single melody line with chord symbols written above it.
You don't need to read every single note of a complex harmony.
Exactly. You just see a C7, and your hands intuitively know how to voice that chord.
It's practical, real-world reading. But second, and more importantly for the beginner's psyche, it completely strips away the terror associated with the grand staff.
Because there's no pressure.
Think about it. You are looking at sheet music every single day you practice, but because you aren't being tested on it, because you aren't struggling to translate it in real time, it stops being this terrifying, incomprehensible foreign language.
It just becomes a familiar visual companion to what your hands are doing.
You start to passively notice the correlations.
Right. You might be playing an alternating left-hand bass line, jumping back and forth between two keys, and out of the corner of your eye, you passively notice, oh, look at that. The black dots on the page are also jumping up and down with the exact same rhythm as my hand.
It is context before definition. The student begins to intuitively understand the meaning of the visual representation long before they are burdened with memorizing the strict rules of that representation.
And to really solidify how clever this is, I have to share the coolest mental trick mentioned in Tony's review.
Oh, please do.
When I read this, it actually blew my mind. Tony describes a specific visualization trick Robin Hall uses to bridge the conceptual gap between the physical horizontal keyboard and the vertical lines of the sheet music.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
I want you, the listener, to visualize this with me. Imagine you are sitting at your piano keyboard. You play a full chord with your right hand and a low bass note with your left hand.
Got it. Got it.
Now, physically, imagine grabbing the ends of the keyboard and rotating the entire instrument 90 degrees clockwise so the keys are running vertically up and down in front of you.
Okay, mapping the horizontal plane to a vertical axis.
Exactly. When you turn the piano sideways in your mind's eye, the physical layout of the keys you are pressing perfectly, one-to-one, mimics how notes are vertically stacked on the horizontal lines of standard sheet music.
Wait, really?
Yes, the lower bass note your left hand is playing is physically lower down on the vertical stack of your imaginary sideways piano, which corresponds exactly to a note written lower down on the bass clef.
Oh my gosh.
And the cluster of notes your right hand is playing is grouped higher up on the sideways keyboard, just like they are grouped higher up on the treble clef.
That is a phenomenal piece of spatial reasoning. It instantly demystifies the entire concept of the grand staff.
Right.
For centuries, beginners have struggled because pressing a key to the right makes a pitch go up on the page. Translating horizontal physical movement to vertical visual movement is incredibly unintuitive.
But this mental parlor trick instantly clicks that into place.
It really does.
It stops the staff from being an arbitrary collection of lines and turns it into a direct physical map of the keyboard simply turned on its side.
And the cumulative effect of all this passive absorption, the exposure therapy, the lead sheet symbols, the spatial rotation tricks, is that when the student finally reaches the later modules where Robin Hall says, okay, now we are actually going to learn to identify these specific notes, the student is not starting from a place of panic or alienation.
They've been staring at the staff for months.
They feel totally comfortable with it. They understand its logic intuitively. So learning the specific names of the notes is just filling in the final blanks of a puzzle they've already mostly solved.
It's brilliant. It allows the learner to eventually tackle complex sight reading or classical pieces with a foundation of built-in confidence, completely bypassing the anxiety that ruins so many adult learners.
So we have established this incredibly robust, psychologically clever foundation in books 1 through 4. You've got chords, you've got rhythm, you have hand independence, and you are passively absorbing the logic of sheet music.
The foundation is set.
But this naturally leads to a question of limits. What is the ceiling of this methodology? Once you graduate from this 4-book foundation, where does Pianoforall actually take you? Are you just destined to play 4-chord pop songs at parties for the rest of your life?
Which is a valid concern, because many quick start courses end exactly there.
Yeah.
They teach you a few party tricks and then leave you stranded without a path to true musical mastery.
Right.
But this is where the sheer volume and depth of content in the Pianoforall package becomes apparent. Books 5 through 8 transition the learner out of basic pop structures and into significantly more advanced, harmonically complex territory.
We are talking about scaling up to entirely new, highly respected genres. The curriculum moves through dedicated books on ballads, blues, jazz, and a section with the incredibly appealing title, Tame the Classics.
And moving into blues, and especially jazz, is no small feat. It requires a much more sophisticated understanding of harmony, tension, release, and rhythm.
Oh, for sure.
You are no longer just dealing with basic major and minor triads. You are navigating seventh chords, diminished chords, complex syncopations, swing rhythms, and the foundational elements of improvisation.
It gets deep.
The fact that a single unified course claims to seamlessly guide a day one beginner all the way to understanding jazz voicings is highly ambitious.
Tony notes in his review that he was really looking forward to digging into the ballads, blues, and jazz books. And what's interesting is that he mentioned he might actually jump ahead and test out the Tame the Classics book early, specifically to beef up his own minimal sight reading skill.
Oh, it's smart.
Yeah. This proves a really important point about the structure of the course. It's modular. You aren't locked into a rigid, linear path. If a specific topic or genre catches your eye or addresses a specific weakness you want to work on, you have the freedom to jump ahead and explore it.
That autonomy is crucial for adult learners. We want to direct our own education based on our personal musical tastes.
But I want to spend some serious time on the section that really seemed to catch Tony off guard. And I think this is crucial for anyone listening who might already have a little bit of piano experience. I'm talking about Book 9.
Yes,
Yeah.
the mysterious Book 9.
Exactly. It's titled Speed Learning.
Hmm.
Tony explicitly states in his review that he had absolutely no idea what this book was going to be about until he actually opened the file. And what he discovered inside is essentially the hidden gem of the entire Pianoforall package.
How exactly does he categorize it? Because speed learning sounds a bit like an infomercial buzzword.
I thought so too, but he calls it a massive resource. It is not just another textbook of songs. It is a giant, comprehensive collection of specific tips, mechanical tricks, practice routines, and rigorous daily workouts.
Oh, workouts.
And it is completely categorized and split up by musical genre. It functions less like a textbook and more like a daily gym routine for your fingers.
Which addresses one of the most critical, yet frequently ignored components of self-guided musical learning.
Practice drill.
Yes. A course can teach you the intellectual concept of what to play. It can show you the notes of a blues scale. But teaching you how to practice that scale efficiently is almost always left out.
Totally.
Providing students with structured, genre-specific daily workouts is exactly what bridges the massive gap between understanding a concept in your head and executing it flawlessly with your hands.
It's the difference between knowing the rules of basketball and actually running passing drills. And what's truly amazing here is Tony's personal reaction to Book 9. Let's remember the context of who is reviewing this.
He's not a novice.
Right. Tony is not a day one beginner. He considers himself a beginner to intermediate player. He has been playing for a couple of years. He has a foundation.
Yeah.
But he states unequivocally that he immediately found massive, actionable value in Book 9, specifically pulling out the blues exercises and workouts to use in his own daily practice.
Which brilliantly highlights the scalability of the entire Pianoforall ecosystem. It isn't just a disposable launch pad for absolute novices. If a player with years of experience is extracting high-value daily exercises from the curriculum to improve their finger dexterity and rhythmic feel, that speaks to a profound depth of material.
Exactly. Even with his prior knowledge, he is using these workouts to push past his current plateaus. Now, he does issue a very clear caveat based on his own experience, and we should pass this on to the listener.
A warning label.
Yeah, if you are a true absolute beginner, you really should exercise some patience and wait until you finish the first 4 foundational books before you try to dive deeply into the heavy workouts in Book 9. You desperately need the foundational understanding of chords and rhythm before you start trying to do speed drills.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You need to know how to properly hold a hammer and swing it safely before you start doing speed framing drills on a construction site. Otherwise, you're just going to injure yourself or build bad habits.
Right. But Tony also adds that it is highly recommended to at least skim through Book 9 early on in your journey, just so you know what kind of resources are waiting for you down the line. It acts as a roadmap.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, it shows you, hey, when I eventually get stuck on a tricky blues transition in Book 6, I don't have to panic because I know there is a specific, targeted daily workout designed to solve that exact problem waiting for me in Book 9.
It transforms the course from a simple set of instructions into a comprehensive reference manual that you can return to for the rest of your piano playing life.
So let's summarize where we are. We've talked about the psychology of the play first philosophy. We've discussed the brilliant offline tech delivery, the early integration of rhythm to build hand independence, the sneaky spatial tricks to absorb sheet music without anxiety, and the massive scaling potential of the advanced genres and speed workouts.
It covers a lot of ground.
It sounds like an absolutely perfect, flawless system. But if we're going to do a true deep dive, we need to do a reality check.
Always.
We need to be incredibly clear about exactly who should buy this, who absolutely shouldn't, and what the actual financial investment looks like.
That is essential because no single pedagogical methodology, no matter how clever or well-designed, works perfectly for every single type of learner or every single musical goal.
Exactly. So let's speak directly to you, the listener, right now. Let's figure out if this is actually right for you. If you are someone who is a total beginner, If you have stared at pianos your whole life and always wanted to play but never knew how to start, this is custom built for you.
Yes, absolutely.
If you are a busy adult with a demanding job, maybe you have kids, and you simply do not have the time or energy to commit to a strict, immovable weekly schedule with an in-person instructor, this is for you.
Total.
If you are a self-learner who likes to absorb information at your own pace, and you want the freedom to skip around to the genres that actually interest you, this is absolutely perfect for you.
But this raises a vitally important question. Who is this not for? Because building trust in any review requires a totally honest admission of the flaws, or more accurately, the intentional baked-in limitations of a product.
Right, Robin Hall can't be everything to everyone, so who is going to be disappointed by this?
Honestly speaking, this course is simply not ideal for strict classical learners.
Okay.
If your singular burning goal in learning the piano is to become a concert pianist, to sit in a tuxedo and play Chopin, Bach, and Beethoven exactly as it was meticulously written on the page centuries ago, and you demand a heavy, early focus on strict sight reading and classical technique, this method will likely frustrate you.
Yeah, if you are looking for the rigorous, traditional conservatory experience, the strict theory first, rules first approach, Pianoforall is emphatically not providing that.
Nor is it designed for advanced, established musicians who already possess a firm grasp of complex harmony, sight reading, and varied rhythmic styles.
Sure.
While Tony, an intermediate player, found excellent value in the practice exercises in Book 9, a truly advanced player would likely find the core curriculum of the first 8 books redundant to what they already know.
So the bottom line is, if your dream is to read complex sheet music perfectly from day one, skip this course, save your money, and hire a classical tutor.
Exactly.
But if your goal is to sit down at a keyboard, feel confident, and play modern songs that sound genuinely great as fast as humanly possible, you are exactly in the right place.
Which brings us to the most practical question of all. The dollars and cents.
Ah, yes.
What is the value and what is the pricing? And I'm going to keep this incredibly simple because when Tony revealed this in his review, I was genuinely floored by it.
The pricing model for online educational courses can often be an absolute labyrinth. You frequently see monthly subscriptions that are nearly impossible to cancel, tiered access levels where the best material is locked behind a paywall, or hidden fees to unlock advanced modules.
Thankfully, none of that applies here. Pianoforall uses a refreshingly simple model. It is a one-time payment for lifetime access.
One time. You buy it once, and you own the 9 interactive ebooks forever. There are no recurring charges. According to Tony's review, the standard regular price for the entire package is $79 US. But Tony specifically notes that the creator frequently runs promotions, and at the time he wrote his review, the entire course was on sale for $39 US.
$39. For 9 comprehensive interactive books featuring hundreds of embedded video demonstrations and audio files.
I want to just pause and put this into perspective because the math is almost comical. Think back to that dusty music shop scenario we talked about at the very beginning of this deep dive. Let's calculate the cost of traditional learning.
Okay, let's do the math.
One single month of an in-person piano teacher, which is usually just 4 30-minute lessons, can easily cost well over $100.
Minimum.
Depending on where you live, it could be double that. And what do you actually achieve in those 4 brief 30-minute sessions? You might learn the C major scale, correct your wrist posture a dozen times, and learn to plink out the right hand of Jingle Bells.
It's slow going.
Contrast that with this course. For $39, or even the full price of $79, you are getting an entire lifetime curriculum that takes you from absolute zero to understanding jazz, blues, and complex rhythms, complete with a massive book of daily workouts to keep your skills sharp for years.
The value proposition is, quite frankly, undeniably disproportionate to the cost. It represents a remarkably low-risk financial investment for what is potentially a massive lifelong skill acquisition.
It really is.
Even if a learner only completes the first 4 books and learns to comfortably play pop chords, the return on investment vastly exceeds the purchase price.
Which naturally brings us to our final verdict. We've looked at the psychology, the technology, the pedagogy, and the pricing.
Yeah.
Based on Tony's incredibly thorough preliminary review over at Piano Tone, and based on our own deep dive into the mechanics of exactly how and why this course operates the way it does, the answer to the ultimate question is decisively yes. Yes, Pianoforall is absolutely worth it for beginners and self-learners. I don't want to sound wishy-washy or unsure about this. The sheer volume of high-quality material, the brilliant psychological hack of the play first, theory later method, the offline accessibility, and that crazy low price point combine to make it a staggering value.
It fundamentally re-engineers the learning process. It makes the radical decision to prioritize momentum, immediate satisfaction, and the simple joy of making music over rigid adherence to centuries-old tradition. And analyzing this methodology actually leaves me with a much broader philosophical thought for you to consider, beyond just the piano.
Oh, I love a good philosophical pivot. What are you thinking?
If this play first, theory later approach works so remarkably well for unlocking musicality in adults, if giving ourselves permission to remove the rigid, intimidating rules at the beginning is the exact thing that finally allows people to succeed at a complex skill, what other intimidating goals in our lives are we currently overcomplicating?
Wow.
What other dreams have we deferred because we insist on a theory-first approach?
That is a fantastic, deeply challenging question.
Are we letting the metaphorical metronome and sheet music of our careers, our physical fitness, our hobbies, or our creative personal projects stop us from simply sitting down and playing the chords? Are we paralyzed by the need to understand the underlying theory before we allow ourselves to take the first step?
That is something to seriously chew on. You really don't need to know how the internal combustion engine works to enjoy the thrill of the drive. The joy is in the doing, not just the understanding. So if you've been thinking about learning the piano, if you've been staring at that metaphorical dusty bench for years or even decades, wishing you could just sit down and make real music, this might genuinely be the easiest, most frictionless place to start. Use the link below to get started with Pianoforall. Get rid of the ticking metronome, ignore the complicated sheet music for now, and just put your hands on the keys.
Let yourself make music first.
Yeah.
The rest will follow.